The galaxy's most methodical military force had forms for everything, except the day their textbook operation turned into humanity's idea of a casual Tuesday. Commander Vexthul thought they were filing a routine report about babysitting some human observers during a simple pirate cleanup. What they got instead was a front-row seat to watching 4 humans accidentally befriend the galaxy's most efficient doomsday weapons through aggressive socializing and friendship grenades. Because apparently, when you're engineered by evolution's cruelest sense of humor, even extinction-level bioweapons just become your next conversation partners. Before we dive into this cosmic bureaucratic nightmare, if you're new to HFY Havoc, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell, and drop a like on this video. Because if you want more stories about humans casually rewriting the laws of warfare through sheer social chaos, you definitely don't want to miss what we've got coming. Now let's find out what happens when the universe's most organized species discovers that their greatest tactical advantage might just be learning to file the impossible under routine. Commander Vexthul stared at the incident report form, watching the cursor blink in that special way cursors blink when they know you're about to lie to your superiors. The Catherian Collective had approximately 14,000 different forms for military encounters, ranging from routine patrol with minor debris collection to existential threat requiring immediate evacuation of 3 solar systems. None of them had a checkbox for humans happened. Status report, Commander. Admiral Kithron's voice crackled through the comm with the particular brand of irritation reserved for subordinates who were late, bloody, and suspiciously intact. Your mission parameters indicated a simple orbital cleanup. Explain why your bio readings suggest you've been wrestling with a plasma conduit for the past 6 hours. Vexthul flexed their secondary manipulators, feeling the phantom ache of grip strain that no Catherian weapon should produce. Admiral, I need to file this under anomalous circumstances. Anomalous. The word hung in the recycled air like a bad smell. Commander, you were assigned babysitting duty for a small human contingent. They were supposed to observe our superior tactical methodologies while we handled some garden-variety pirates in the Tertius Belt. How does babysitting become anomalous? The question was reasonable. The answer was not. Sir, the humans. Vexthul paused, searching for words that wouldn't immediately trigger a psychological evaluation. The humans approached the situation differently than our projections indicated. A sound emerged from the comm that might have been laughter, if Admiral Kithron possessed a sense of humor rather than a comprehensive collection of military regulations. Different. Elaborate on different, Commander. Did they fail to follow basic combat protocols? Did they panic? Please tell me they at least managed not to shoot themselves. Vexthul brought up the mission files, letting the data wash over their display in neat, orderly columns of expectation versus reality. The expectation column was a masterpiece of tactical planning. The reality column looked like someone had fed a probability matrix to a quantum shredder. No, sir, they did not panic. Good, continue. They also did not follow basic combat protocols. Less good. How badly did they deviate? Sir, I would estimate their deviation from standard protocol at approximately. Vexthul ran the calculations again, hoping the numbers would change. They didn't. 147%. The silence stretched long enough for Vexthul to wonder if the Admiral had suffered a processing error. Finally, Commander, deviation percentages cap at 100. That represents complete inversion of expected behavior. Yes, sir, I'm aware. Then explain how they achieved 147% deviation. Vexthul closed their primary eyes and accessed the mission memory files, letting the sequence replay with perfect digital clarity. The first sign of trouble had been Forge stepping out of the transport, with what could only be described as enthusiasm. Humans weren't supposed to be enthusiastic about combat assignments. Humans were supposed to be grateful for the opportunity to learn from their betters, possibly nervous about performing adequately, and definitely focused on survival. Forge had taken one look at the tactical briefing and asked if there might be bigger pirates somewhere close by. The human squad leader, Vexthul began carefully, expressed concern that the mission parameters might be insufficiently challenging. They wanted a harder assignment. They requested permission to find something worth shooting after we finished the cleanup. Another pause. Commander, why did you not immediately classify this as aberrant psychological behavior and request their removal from the mission? Because, Vexthul thought, aberrant was rapidly becoming the baseline for human behavior, and the collective's xenopsychology department had started charging overtime for human-related consultations. Instead, they said, the humans passed all standard psychological evaluations, sir. Their combat readiness metrics exceeded baseline requirements. Then they were qualified for the assignment. Yes, sir. But they requested additional combat opportunities. Repeatedly, sir. How repeatedly? Vexthul consulted the audio logs. Forge asked 17 times during the briefing if we might encounter anything interesting while we were in the area. When I explained that interesting typically correlates with dangerous in military contexts, she became more enthusiastic. The Admiral's breathing pattern shifted into what Catherians recognized as deep contemplation, possibly accompanied by the urge to requisition stronger medication. Commander, walk me through the initial engagement. Sir, we achieved optimal positioning around the pirate installation according to standard siege doctrine. 3-dimensional encirclement, all escape vectors covered, overwhelming firepower advantage established. The pirates had 2 options, surrender or face systematic elimination. Textbook approach. What did the humans do? Forge asked if she could talk to them first. That's actually reasonable. Negotiation before violence shows tactical maturity. Yes, sir. However, her definition of negotiation was unconventional. Meaning? Vexthul pulled up the communication logs, noting that the translation algorithms had flagged approximately 30% of Forge's vocabulary as linguistically problematic, and another 20% as contextually impossible. She opened communications with the pirate vessel and informed them that surrender was available, but optional. Optional surrender? She then explained that if they preferred to fight, her team would be happy to accommodate them, but warned that humans considered combat a recreational activity and might become overly competitive. She threatened them? Sir, I believe she was offering them career counseling. The Admiral's silence stretched long enough for Vexthul to review their own career choices. Had they remained in the Catherian diplomatic corps, they would currently be negotiating trade agreements with civilized species who understood concepts like measured response and proportional force. Instead, they were trying to explain to their superior officer why a routine military operation had become a philosophical debate about the nature of conflict. Commander, please tell me the pirates chose to surrender. No, sir. They chose to fight? They chose to run, sir, without firing a shot. They ran from a human negotiation attempt? Forge's final transmission was, "Hey, if you're not going to play, we'll find someone who will." According to our xenolinguistic analysis, this statement somehow conveyed both disappointment and a casual threat of total annihilation. And then, Admiral, we discovered that our simple pirate cleanup had attracted the attention of something considerably more complex. The cursor continued its relentless blinking, waiting for Vexthul to find words that could adequately convey what happened when humans encountered their first Void Reaper nest. The form's drop-down menu offered dozens of threat classifications, from minor hostile encounter to species-ending catastrophe. None of them had a category for humanity discovers new hobby. Admiral, we need to discuss threat classification protocols. The comm crackled with what sounded suspiciously like Admiral Kithron pouring something stronger than regulation stimulant into his mug. Commander, you've been dancing around the actual incident for 10 minutes. What exactly did you encounter after the pirates fled? Vex Thule pulled up the sensor data, watching the familiar green blips of their fleet formation surrounded by the violent red chaos that had erupted from what should have been empty space. Sir, the pirate vessel's trajectory led us directly over a dormant archaeological site. Archaeological sites don't typically register on threat assessment algorithms, Commander. This one did, sir. Threat level designation, Omega-7. The sound of Admiral Kithron choking on his drink carried clearly through the comm. Omega-7 classifications were reserved for extinction-level encounters. The Kitherian Collective had encountered exactly 3 Omega-7 threats in their recorded history. 2 of them had required the sterilization of entire star systems. The third had necessitated a complete revision of their understanding of physics. Confirm that classification, Commander. Confirmed, sir. Archaeological analysis identified the site as a Void Reaper breeding facility, dormant for approximately 12,000 years. The silence that followed was profound enough to make Vex Thule wonder if the Admiral had simply accepted the inevitability of death and was busy updating his will. Void Reapers were the galaxy's most efficient argument for why some civilizations deserved to remain extinct. Their creators had engineered them as the perfect biological weapon, self-replicating, space-capable, and possessed of an intelligence specifically designed to identify and eliminate any form of organized life. Commander, the Admiral said with the careful tone reserved for addressing the terminally insane, please tell me you immediately initiated Contingency Protocol 91. Contingency Protocol 91 was elegant in its simplicity. Detect Void Reaper activity, retreat to minimum safe distance, request immediate sterilization strike from the nearest dreadnought fleet, and spend the next 6 months in psychological counseling while the area was converted to superheated plasma. Sir, I attempted to initiate Protocol 91. Attempted? The humans objected. Vex Thule accessed the mission logs, finding the exact moment when military efficiency collided with human curiosity. Forge had been examining the sensor readouts with the focused attention of someone discovering a particularly interesting puzzle rather than a galaxy-ending nightmare. What specifically did Forge object to? The Admiral asked. She wanted to know why we were leaving before we found out what was down there. You explained that what was down there were self-replicating biological weapons designed to eliminate organized civilization? Yes, sir. She asked if that meant they were smart. And you told her that Void Reapers possess tactical intelligence exceeding most military AI systems? I did, sir. She became excited. The Admiral's breathing pattern shifted into what medical databases classified as impending cardiovascular stress. Excited about encountering hyperintelligent, biological weapons? Forge gathered her team and announced that they were about to meet the galaxy's most successful predators and wanted to see how they measured up. Vex Thule remembered the moment with crystalline clarity. Their tactical computers had been calculating retreat vectors and survival probabilities, while the humans huddled around their portable displays like younglings examining a new game. The Kitherian approach to Omega-7 threats involved mathematics, probability matrices, risk assessments, and carefully calculated responses designed to maximize survival odds. The human approach apparently involved enthusiasm. Sir, while we were preparing evacuation procedures, the humans began discussing strategy. What kind of strategy? Forge designated herself as bait and asked her demolitions specialist, Torres, how much explosive he could fit inside a standard combat suit. They were planning a suicide attack? No, sir. They were planning what Torres called aggressive socializing. The Admiral made a sound that might have been laughter, if laughter could convey existential despair. Commander, please explain how aggressive socializing constitutes a viable tactical response to Omega-7 entities. Vex Thul had asked the same question. Forge's answer had been illuminating in the way that staring directly into a fusion reactor was illuminating. Forge explained that Void Reapers were engineered to eliminate organized civilizations, but humans aren't organized. That's actually not entirely inaccurate. She then theorized that creatures designed to hunt methodical, logical species might have difficulty processing targets that operate on what she termed creative chaos theory. Creative chaos theory? I requested elaboration, sir. Forge said that if the Void Reapers expected standard military responses, they should give them something completely different. Such as? Torres suggested they introduce themselves properly by detonating a thermobaric device directly above the nest site while broadcasting human music at maximum volume. The Admiral's silence stretched long enough for Vex Thul to review their own mortality statistics. Finally, Commander, did you allow them to proceed with this plan? Sir, before I could object, the nest site activated. The sensor logs showed what happened next in excruciating detail. The dormant facility had detected their presence and begun its awakening sequence with the methodical precision of a galaxy-ending alarm clock. Void Reapers didn't simply emerge from hibernation. They calculated, analyzed, and adapted to whatever threats had disturbed their rest. What they emerged to find was Forge's team setting up speakers. The initial Void Reaper scout emerged approximately 30 seconds after Torres activated his sound system. Vex Thul continued. According to our xenobiological databases, first contact protocol for Void Reapers involves immediate assessment of threat, capabilities followed by systematic elimination procedures. What did this particular scout assess? Sir, it spent 47 seconds attempting to classify the human audio transmissions. Human music confused a Void Reaper? The combat logs indicate it was specifically trying to determine whether the sounds represented a communication attempt, a weapon system, or a mating display. Vex Thul pulled up the audio analysis, noting that the translation algorithms had classified the human music as linguistically complex and emotionally aggressive, and possibly ritualistic. The Void Reaper had apparently reached similar conclusions. While the scout was analyzing the music, Forge approached it. She approached an active Void Reaper? Sir, she walked directly up to a creature engineered to eliminate organized life and introduced herself by name. How did it respond? According to the bio-readings, it experienced what our medical databases classify as cognitive overflow. The Admiral's pause was so long that Vex Thul began to wonder if the communication system had failed. Finally, Commander, are you telling me that a human handshake protocol crashed a Void Reaper's tactical processing system? Not crashed, sir. Temporarily overloaded. The creature spent 3 minutes attempting to categorize Forge's behavior patterns before requesting reinforcements. It called for backup? 12 additional scouts emerged from the facility. Forge's team responded by turning up the music and offering to share their rations. Vex Thul closed their secondary eyes, remembering the moment when 13 of the galaxy's most efficient killing machines had stood in a rough circle around 4 humans who were apparently hosting an impromptu cultural exchange. The tactical implications should have been straightforward. Immediate elimination of the humans followed by systematic hunting of the remaining expedition members. Instead, the Void Reapers had begun what could only be described as taking notes. Admiral, I believe we discovered something unprecedented about Void Reaper psychology. Which is, They're scientists, sir. They were engineered to study and eliminate organized civilizations. But when they encountered something genuinely disorganized, their research protocols took priority over their elimination directives. The comm was quiet long enough for Vexthul to contemplate the irony that humanity's greatest tactical advantage might be their complete inability to make tactical sense. Commander, how long did this cultural exchange continue? 17 minutes, sir. Right up until the Void Reapers figured out what humans actually were. Sir, the Void Reapers classified humanity as an apex persistence predator. Admiral Kithron's response was immediate and predictable. That classification doesn't exist in any xenobiological database. The Void Reapers created it, sir, approximately 30 seconds before they declared a planetary emergency and began coordinating their first organized retreat in 12,000 years. Vexthul accessed the tactical recordings, watching their orderly military formation dissolve into something resembling controlled chaos as the situation evolved beyond all reasonable parameters. The moment the Void Reapers had reached their conclusion about human nature, the entire dynamic had shifted from scientific curiosity to something approaching panic. Commander, explain how creatures engineered to eliminate civilizations decided to retreat from 4 humans. Sir, the lead scout transmitted a priority alert to the central nest describing humans as unkillable social pack hunters with apparent reality distortion capabilities. Reality distortion? The Void Reapers couldn't process how humans had survived their own evolutionary environment long enough to achieve space travel. Vexthul remembered Torres cheerfully explaining to a cluster of bioweapons that Earth featured fun weather patterns like hurricanes, tornadoes, and tsunamis, followed by a comprehensive list of the planet's recreational predators. The Void Reapers had apparently run probability calculations on human survival odds and concluded that the math was impossible. What happened when they declared the emergency? The Admiral asked. The nest began full activation protocol, sir. 237 Void Reapers emerging for coordinated elimination procedures. Standard pack hunting behavior. Yes, sir. However, the humans interpreted the mass emergence as the party getting started. The tactical display showed what followed. Cytherian vessels maintaining defensive formations at optimal engagement distances, while human signatures moved in patterns that defied every principle of military science. Forge had divided her team into what she called conversation clusters and begun systematically approaching different groups of Void Reapers. Commander, please tell me you intervened before they made contact with 200 Void Reapers. Sir, I attempted to provide fire support, but the humans requested that we give them some space to work. Work? Torres had developed what he called friendship grenades, modified concussion devices that produced bright flashes and loud noises, but no actual damage. He claimed they were for getting everyone's attention during introductions. The Admiral's breathing had shifted into what Vexthul recognized as the early stages of existential crisis. Commander, warfare is not a social activity. I conveyed that information to Forge, sir. She replied that everything was a social activity if you approached it with the right attitude. What followed had redefined Vexthul's understanding of both warfare and social dynamics. The Void Reapers had emerged expecting to encounter a standard military force, organized formations, predictable tactics, and clear hierarchical structures they could systematically dismantle. Instead, they found themselves facing what appeared to be an enthusiastic welcoming committee. Forge's opening gambit was to compliment the lead Reaper's impressive biological engineering and ask if they were interested in comparing hunting strategies. She propositioned Void Reapers for tactical discussions. Sir, she treated them as colleagues. When the lead Reaper demonstrated its primary attack mode, a directed plasma discharge capable of melting through ship armor, Torres applauded and asked if they could see that again, but maybe with more style. The recordings showed the precise moment when the galaxy's most efficient killing machines encountered their first performance anxiety. The Void Reapers began modifying their attacks, adding unnecessary flourishes, and apparently competing for human approval. Commander, are you documenting that Void Reapers developed an aesthetic sense under human influence? Sir, within 20 minutes they were taking requests. Forge asked if they could spell out letters with their plasma attacks, and 3 different Reapers attempted to write "Hello" in molten metal across the asteroid field. Vexthul had watched this evolution with the horrified fascination of someone witnessing the fundamental laws of nature being casually rewritten. The Void Reapers weren't just failing to eliminate the humans, they were actively seeking human validation for their elimination techniques. What was your tactical assessment at this point? Sir, my tactical assessment was that I was experiencing a comprehensive psychological break from reality. Understandable. Continue. The situation deteriorated further when Forge suggested they make it interesting by introducing team-based challenges. Team challenges? Human Reaper mixed units competing in various combat scenarios. Torres volunteered to ride on a Reaper's back during attack runs, while providing what he called helpful suggestions and moral support. The Admiral's silence stretched long enough for Vexthul to review the complete tactical logs, searching for any moment when the situation had resembled conventional warfare. The search returned 0 results. The Void Reapers accepted these challenges? Enthusiastically, sir. They began incorporating human suggestions into their attack patterns, including Torres's recommendation to add more explosions because explosions are always better. Did this improve their combat effectiveness? Sir, their combat effectiveness increased by approximately 400%, but they were no longer using it against us. This was the crux of the entire encounter. The moment when the galaxy's most dangerous biological weapons had been accidentally converted into the galaxy's most dangerous recreational partners. The Void Reapers had maintained their lethal capabilities while completely abandoning their original purpose. Forge had somehow convinced them that eliminating organized civilizations was boring work, and that they should consider exploring their creative potential. Creative potential. Sir, by the end of the engagement, the Void Reapers were collaborating on artistic plasma sculptures while debating the philosophical implications of persistence, hunting versus ambush predation. The tactical recordings showed the final phase. 237 bioweapons engaged in what could only be described as an interdisciplinary workshop, with humans providing commentary, encouragement, and increasingly elaborate challenges. The original nest facility had been converted into something resembling a combination training ground and art studio. What was the final resolution? The Admiral asked. Sir, Forge negotiated what she termed a cultural exchange program. The Void Reapers agreed to suspend their civilization elimination protocols in exchange for regular visits from human teams interested in collaborative problem-solving. She established diplomatic relations with Omega-7 entities. Sir, she established what appeared to be a social club. The Void Reapers were genuinely excited about the possibility of meeting more humans and learning additional creative applications for their abilities. Vexthul closed the tactical files, noting that the final casualty reports showed 0 fatalities, 0 injuries, and 1 formal request from the Void Reaper Collective for the humans to return whenever convenient, with more interesting ideas. Commander, how do you classify this outcome in your official report? Sir, that's exactly the problem I'm facing. The cursor continued blinking on the incident form, waiting for Vexthul to find a category that could encompass the reality that humanity had accidentally solved the galaxy's greatest existential threat through the simple expedient of being aggressively friendly to creatures designed to end civilization. The drop-down menu still had no option for converted doomsday weapons into pen pals. Admiral, I've reviewed the classification options 17 times. None of them accommodate the actual events. The sound of Admiral Cuthron systematically destroying his office furniture carried clearly through the communication. Commander, the Cytherian Collective has been documenting military encounters for 8,000 years. We have forms for everything from accidental first contact with sentient gas clouds to time paradoxes caused by experimental weapons testing. How difficult can it be to file one incident report? Vexthul scrolled through the endless cascade of bureaucratic options, each one precisely crafted for scenarios that made sense. Sir, the closest match is successful diplomatic resolution of existential threat, but that requires listing the negotiated terms. What terms did you negotiate? Sir, the humans didn't negotiate. They essentially adopted the Void Reapers as cosmic pets and promised to bring them cooler friends next time. The destruction sounds from the Admiral's office intensified. Vexthul suspected. Valuable equipment was being converted into expensive debris. Commander, I'm transferring you to High Command. This situation exceeds my administrative capacity. The line went quiet, replaced by the sterile holding pattern that indicated transfer to the Collective's uppermost bureaucratic levels. Vexthul used the waiting time to review their career trajectory, noting that successfully contained human-related incident wasn't currently listed among advancement criteria. Commander Vexthul. The new voice carried the weight of someone who had personally witnessed the rise and fall of multiple civilizations and was thoroughly unimpressed by both. I am Director Quithmar of Strategic Documentation. Admiral Kythron has forwarded your report with a note indicating psychological evaluation recommended for all involved personnel. Yes, sir. I've been reviewing human-related incident reports for the past hour, Commander. Your encounter with Void Reapers represents the 47th anomalous human behavior incident filed this quarter. Vexthul felt something that might have been relief, if relief weren't immediately followed by existential dread. Sir, there have been other incidents? Commander, we have documented humans successfully mediating territorial disputes between hive minds by teaching them competitive poetry. We have reports of human engineers fixing 1,000-year-old automated defense systems by percussive maintenance and encouraging words. Last week, a human xenobiologist resolved a parasitic plague outbreak by convincing the parasites to pursue careers in environmental rehabilitation. The implications hit Vexthul like a tactical missile loaded with uncomfortable questions. Sir, how long has this been happening? Since first contact, Commander. We have been filing these reports under various categories, but the common element is always human involvement producing outcomes that violate established probability matrices. Director Quithmar transmitted a data package that made Vexthul's processing centers ache. Thousands of incident reports, each one documenting scenarios where human behavior had transformed potential disasters into incomprehensible successes. The pattern was clear. When faced with insurmountable problems, humans invariably discovered solutions that shouldn't exist. Sir, why haven't these patterns been incorporated into our tactical doctrine? Because, Commander, our tactical doctrine is based on logical analysis of cause and effect. Human solutions operate outside logical frameworks. But they work. Consistently, yes, which presents us with a significant problem. Vexthul pulled up the statistical analysis, watching probability curves that resembled abstract art more than mathematical models. Human success rates in impossible situations exceeded theoretical maximums by margins that required entirely new branches of mathematics to calculate. Sir, what kind of problem? The kind that requires us to admit that 8,000 years of military science might be fundamentally incomplete. The transmission included archived files dating back to humanity's first integration into collective operations. Every single engagement had followed the same pattern. Careful Cytherian planning followed by human improvisation that somehow exceeded the planned outcomes while completely ignoring the methods used to achieve them. Commander, I'm transmitting your report to the Archive of Unclassifiable Events. Your incident will be filed under reference code UE-4751, Human Adjacent Reality Deviation. Sir, is that an official classification? We created it last month after a human archaeological team discovered a method for communicating with extinct civilizations by asking really nicely and playing recordings of earth rain sounds. Vexthul stared at the final form field, watching the cursor blink with what now seemed like smug satisfaction. The Cytherian collective had spent millennia creating perfect bureaucratic systems designed to categorize and understand every possible military encounter. They had never considered that some encounters might be categorically uncategorizable. Director, what should I put in the mission summary field? What did you put for all your previous human-related encounters? Previous encounters? Commander, you've been assigned to human integration duty for 3 years. This is your 43rd filed report involving human personnel. The archives flooded Vexthul's display with a comprehensive record of every mission they'd forgotten they wanted to forget. Human teams accidentally discovering ancient technologies by treating archaeological sites like scavenger hunts. Human diplomats resolving interspecies conflicts by introducing competitive cooking. Human engineers improving collective technology by ignoring the operating manuals and seeing what happened if they tried something different. Sir, I've been unconsciously documenting a pattern of human success through systematic rejection of established methodology. Congratulations, Commander. You've independently discovered what our Strategic Analysis Division has been quietly studying for decades. There's a Strategic Analysis Division studying human behavior. There's an entire department, Commander. The Department of Inexplicable Human Outcomes. They're our fastest-growing administrative division. Vexthul felt the universe shift slightly, realizing that their routine military career had somehow become an inadvertent contribution to the galaxy's most comprehensive study of applied chaos theory. The Cytherian collective hadn't just been tolerating human unpredictability, they'd been systematically documenting it. Sir, what do they do with all this data? They've created the most accurate psychological profile of humanity ever developed. Turns out the secret to predicting human behavior is to identify the most logical course of action and then prepare for them to do something completely different that works better. And this is useful how? Commander, the collective's success rate in joint operations has increased by 60% since we started accounting for human creativity in our planning matrices. The final pieces aligned in Vexthul's mind, like a tactical formation clicking into perfect position. The Cytherian collective had been accidentally running the galaxy's largest experiment in applied human psychology, disguised as routine military bureaucracy. Every impossible success, every violation of established protocol, every report that couldn't be properly filed had been building toward a single, uncomfortable conclusion. Sir, are you telling me that chaos might be more effective than order? Commander, I'm telling you that humans have been proving that hypothesis for 3 years, and we've been unconsciously documenting the evidence. Vexthul looked at the incident report one final time, noting that the mission outcome field offered a simple drop-down menu. Success, partial success, failure, or other. None of these options seemed adequate for describing the conversion of galaxy-ending bioweapons into an enthusiastic social network, but bureaucracy demanded simplicity. Director, what should I select for mission outcome? Same thing you always select, Commander. Routine peacekeeping mission. Successful. But sir, this wasn't routine. Commander, When you've been working with humans for 3 years, everything becomes routine. The impossible just becomes Tuesday. Vexthul selected Routine Peacekeeping Mission, Successful, and submitted the form. Watching it disappear into the vast digital archives, where it would join thousands of other reports documenting the systematic failure of logic to predict human behavior. Somewhere in those archives, the Department of Inexplicable Human Outcomes would add another data point to their growing proof that the galaxy's most organized military force had been accidentally measuring the effectiveness of pure, weaponized spontaneity. The cursor stopped blinking. The form was complete. And somewhere in the Tertius Belt, 237 former bioweapons were probably learning to play human card games while waiting for their new friends to return with even more interesting challenges. Vexthul closed the terminal and reached for their own stimulant dispenser, finally understanding why the Department of Inexplicable Human Outcomes had the highest turnover rate in the collective. Fear, it turned out, wasn't about facing the unknown. Fear was about discovering that the unknown had been systematically documenting itself in triplicate for 3 years, and the paperwork was starting to make sense.